Okay, this talk is going to be about exoplanet measurement problems. This is the biggest telescope that I personally own. I'm just using that as a backdrop. But we're going to talk about all the exoplanets and the problems that arise and how they identify them, and just some of the distances involved in interplanetary space. Now, just to give you an example of the problems with interplanetary space, we're going to talk about the Earth and the Moon. This basketball will represent the Earth, and I found this thing that's will represent the Moon, and it's pretty close to the Moon is 1/6 of the size of the Earth, and it's 30 diameters away from the Earth. So I've already marked that off, so I'm going to go put this where that point is, and then we're going to get on the ground by the basketball and show you exactly how far it is to the Moon just from the Earth. And there's Mr. Spock, my science officer, is helping me for this. So there's the Moon over there, and here is the Earth. These are all the numbers that I've got from NASA and mainline science. That's how far the Earth is, and then there's a giant monster walked in between us. So you can do this with whatever you want to do the different size of comparison. Whatever you choose for the Earth, choose something 1/6 that size to be the Moon, and then choose 30 diameters to make up the distance between the said objects. Like I said, I don't really even buy the numbers that they give in mainline science. I'll cover that in another video, but we're going to go over to some mainline science problems with exoplanets. So just to give you an idea of the size involved and how they just guess on a lot of stuff, the nearest star, everybody thinks it's Alpha Centauri. Alpha Centauri is one of the four stars that makes up Proxima Centauri. Proxima Centauri is the nearest star to the sun, and it's in a star constellation called Alpha Centauri. Excuse me, I had it reversed. And it's approximately 4.2 light years away. Now, how far is that? If you use the sun as a quarter, I am in San Antonio, Texas right now. At this scale, the nearest star, which is Proxima Centauri in the Alpha Centauri star system, would be in Buda, Texas, 72 miles from where I'm standing. That's how far it is. Now, NASA's got several supposed space telescopes outside floating around: Kepler, Hubble, the Chandra X-ray, and the Sophia, which actually is the stratospheric observation for infrared astronomy. And that one's mounted on a plane that goes up to 45,000 feet. The normal cruising altitude for most commercial jets is in the 30,000, and it says it'll go up to 42,000. As it gets low on fuel, it can go higher because it's lighter, but it actually can go up to 45,000 feet. Now, there's also the Spitzer Space Telescope, and supposedly it's found an exoplanet 13,000 light years away. Now, let's talk about some of the problems involved in something that far away. Now, the Kepler telescope has 42 cameras in it, and they're on a slightly curved space. The facing of it kind of goes like this, and it's to take care of a thing, the theoretical problem called the pretzel field effect. So the 42 that are in there, each of those 42 cameras are actually smaller than my telescope. Each of the 42 ones are smaller. They're about only 60% of the size of the telescope that I have, the biggest one I have. But some of the problems involved here, like they claim that they found at about 24 light years away, pretty much an exact copy of our solar system, the way the standard model goes, and they found a Jupiter-sized planet. The problem being Jupiter around our sun, the supposed it's gotten they've only been watching for 11 years. Well, it takes way more than 11 years for Jupiter to go around to make an orbit, according to everything is put out. So they extrapolate a lot of data from stuff that doesn't actually exist. Now, they're also assuming that the light, if you talk to astronomy teachers, they'll tell you light is the supreme informant, that through the interpretation of Fraunhofer lines, you can tell what the star is made of, and so on and so forth. The only problem with that is the supposed vacuum of space is not a true vacuum. There's ice crystals floating around everywhere. There's dust particles. Oops, just lost this thing here. There's dust particles. There's all kinds of debris in space that could affect the reading, especially when it's going, 13,000 light years, and so kind of suspect on all of the measurements from NASA. Again, they're the only people who can really look through this telescope, so I don't trust them. Since they lie on everything else, why would they tell the truth on this? Now let's talk about the Sophia. The Sophia is the stratospheric observation for infrared astronomy, and this is Sophia. Get up there real good and close. So it's a joint venture between Germany and the U.S., and they can load it with several different telescopes. And I contend that the thing I just showed you is all of these. There's a man on the internet that was doing postgraduate work in a university in Southern California named Robert Paisano, and he called up NASA trying to get Hubble data. And it's about a 20-minute talk. You can find him, just punch in Robert Paisano fake Hubble. And it's kind of technical to talk, but basically the guy that's the head of Hubble says that he got all the information from the Sophia, not Kepler. So the stuff you're getting fed is all CGI. Like I said, the Kepler telescope is supposedly, it has 42 of these curved cameras, each of which is smaller, like I said, 60% of the size of the telescope that I showed you earlier. And it's supposedly has found, between all of these, they found 1,015 planets, around 405 stars. I just had to update it today. The numbers changed since the last time I remembered the numbers, so I'd updated it. So the scales involved they make so many assumptions on, and they just make stuff up because they need money. And it's a white elephant. They're a whole lot like the Egyptians, priests that were the only ones that could talk to the gods. NASA's that new thing. They put out all this CGI, and people just buy it up like it's actually real and it's fake. Kind of like to bring up the name. So their best planet finder has been Kepler, the Kepler telescope. Kepler was a student of Tycho Brahe, and Tycho Brahe fired him. Now Tycho Brahe, back then scientists, they would get patronages by barons and kings and whatnot to let them do their work, and they would get sponsors. Well, Kepler was fired by Brahe because he was an idiot, and then after 2 years of begging him to take him back, he finally did. Tycho Brahe did take him back, and suddenly Tycho Brahe's dead. And he was in his early 50s, but he was healthy till he went down real fast, and they found traces of mercury on his mustache. And it's commonly thought that Kepler murdered Tycho Brahe, and then he got all his data, and the king ran with him with the patronage because there wasn't anybody else to do it. So Kepler gets honored, even though everything he got was from Tycho Brahe. And of course, he extrapolated different. He followed the more mainline model as opposed to Tycho Brahe. I think Tycho Brahe was pretty much right on everything. You can check that out on your own. But yeah, anyway, pretty much everything NASA says is just made up stuff. And like I said, all of these space telescopes are probably Sophia or just CGI. And like I said, there's enormous distances involved. Like I said, if this is the Earth, and there's the giant space monster, Mr. Spock, my German pincher. Oh, he just knocked the Earth out of orbit. Okay, so anyway, the enormous distances involved from just the Earth to the Moon are staggering. If you were to figure out where the International Space Station is, it's only up 200 miles, which would be about that far off of the basketball. So let's walk from the Earth to the Moon. This is a long journey just to get to the Moon, and we never went there in the first place. But so there you go. So this is the distance from the Earth to the Moon. A long way away. So they make up a lot of stuff. Like I said, the distances involved, they fudge on all the numbers basically, because they can't. There's no way they can. They use redshift, blue shift to guess on the distance for stars, and they're not taking into account interstellar dust. Like if this was the Earth, the supposed ice belt that surrounds the solar system, the theoretical Kuiper ice belt, would be, from where my house is, it would be I'm probably 3 blocks from 410, and across the highway from that is the big car dealership with a giant Indian. That would be the ice belt, the theoretical ice belt that surrounds the solar system. So these are the distances involved, and I'm out.